Fire Emblem Echoes just around the corner, I feel that it'd be fun to do another Fire Emblem video to celebrate the new Fire Emblem game, but really it's just an excuse to make another Fire Emblem video. It makes sense to make a follow-up video of the Fire Emblem Echoes video I did a while back, since it was about my predictions and thoughts of the upcoming game. But I'm not going to do that. Instead I want to talk about another Fire Emblem game that's a bit of an oddity in the series and never got released. Although what the game is going to be is not a surprise since you already saw the title and already know what's going to be. Kinda makes the whole build-up of this pointless. So Fire Emblem Wii, or at least the closest thing I could find to a title, was a game that was going to be developed on the Wii, if that wasn't obvious enough, with work on it starting right after the release of Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. The game was going to take place in a fantasy-like setting, with buildings having a southern European architecture, built in line with the sea. In this image, we can see some of the townfolk and shopkeepers, possibly meaning that you could freely explore towns and interact with people and merchants in each town. There's both a screenshot and concept art that help support this theory. The concept art shows different parts of town, assumingly the same town from the image before. Other than the images shown here, there's nothing of known importance of the areas. The temple could possibly be a place to promote units to a higher tier class. Going off the screenshot shown, this is clearly in a town, but it really doesn't look like the previously shown images. But the name given in the bottom corner of the screen reads, Imperial Capital Gristal. Well, I think that's how you pronounce that. I don't know. And the first image most certainly has a very imperial capital look to it, so this could be within the same town, but given that this is the only in-town screenshot shown, it could easily just be a difference between concept art and in-game graphics. Also something to note with the GUIs is what appears to be a list of commands. That are a menu. It's clearly highlighting a talk option, possibly meaning that you can go into a menu and talk with people. Kind of similar to Earthbound. Although in Earthbound you could hit L and talk and interact with things without bringing up a menu, which would be nice to have a shortcut button, for that it would be annoying to go through the menu every single time you want to interact with something. Now the other options on this list are more or less up to the imagination. Now the second item on this list... I can't tell what that's supposed to be. Image is a bit grainy. Luckily I got the Fire Emblem 25th Anniversary book in preparation of this video, since this page is from the book, and images are much more clear in the book, so it's a little easier to make out what these are supposed to be. Although I'm still not sure what the second image is supposed to be, but I'm guessing it's either a mug or a piece of armor? Since I'm not really sure on what this is, it's kind of hard to say what's supposed to do. The third item is obviously a sword, so this is probably where you change out your physical weapons. The fourth item is a bag, which kind of resembles a vulnerary. This is probably where you manage your items such as vulneraries and other items of the sort. Now for the fifth and sixth items are a bit more interesting. The fifth item is a book, which is safe to assume it's a tome, but the sixth item mostly resembles an icon for light magic in the Tellius games. It would make sense for this icon to show up again since it was being made right after one of the Tellius games, but would it still mean the same thing? I do have a couple thoughts on what these two could mean. The book icon could be referring to all tome spells, and the light icon could be referring to staffs, since that would be the easiest thing to connect light magic with, especially since light tomes were often used by promoted healers, or units that would later gain staffs. For the other thought, the book could mean all magic, and light could just be an options menu, since this is where you usually find an options option in this kind of menu. Looking more at the screenshot, we can also see that the game was reusing Radiant Dawn models at this point in development. We can see Stefan, Eliana, and some generic healer being playable, with Edward possibly being in the shot as well. I'm pretty sure these are just placeholder characters, especially with the healer being a generic unit, but this could mean that you start out with a healer, a mage, and a Myrmidon, or possibly a swordmaster if this is supposed to be a promoted unit that most Fire Emblem games would usually give you off the bat. And it's probably not limited to these three characters from the start either, but this is more or less a guess that's not really going off of much. We also have a few more screenshots and a drawing of a map. These images show off a small area of 3 towns, along with a dungeon and a building you can find out in the field. According to the notes on the map art, it takes the player about 5 to 10 minutes to reach one side from another, excluding battles that can take place in between. Now the battles that will occur on the map will happen if a player were to touch an enemy symbol, which the screen shows off enemy voids on the field, which I'm not sure if these are supposed to be the enemy symbols. What also showing off about the field is the zoom function, showing the camera zoomed in and zoomed out in a single area, along with the controls for what the map would have been, which looks pretty similar to what the controls would have been in Radiant Dawn. On that, there really isn't much to talk about, other than where the screenshots were taken on the map, which isn't too hard to figure out since it clearly looks like they're on a bridge, and there is only a single bridge on the map. The combat in this game is probably the most interesting thing about this Fire Emblem title. Fire Emblem Wii was going to be a real-time strategy game. And that's about all we know about the combat, since there's honestly not that much information on this game. With how little knowledge of the game there is, it probably goes without saying that we really don't know anything about the story. But I do feel like there are some key puzzle pieces to what the story is about in some concept art. Going back to the first image, there's this big object in the background concealed by distant clouds and mist. This object most certainly looks like a tree, doesn't it? I feel like that this large tree has a really important role over the course of the game, going off of two things. There's one more piece of concept art, with it being a large tree with leaves that spread really far out, and the tree being surrounded by what seems to be a mist or clouds. The 25th anniversary book also goes out of its way to describe the game as a fantasy setting that features things like tall trees that tower over their surroundings. While that line could be referring to just about anything, I find it a bit odd how it specifically mentions trees. Because of this description, along with two pieces of concept art given, it probably goes without saying that this tree has some importance of some kind. If I had to guess, this tree is probably the Yggdrasil. Did I pronounce that right?
Yggdrasil.
Subscribe for more amazing videos.
Yeah, that's good enough. The Yggdrasil is a holy ash tree that lies within the center of the cosmos that links worlds together, which could be an early concept of the Outrealms in Awakening. Another interesting thing to note about the Yggdrasil is this thing called the Nidhogg. The Nidhogg was a creature that gnaws on the roots of the Yggdrasil tree. The first three letters of its name usually described something as villainous, and this creature was known for eating corpses of those of high guilt. Though this trait could mean nothing in the long run, but it's interesting to note since it could help create a possible plot. More importantly to note, and the reason why I brought up the Nidhogg, is the fact that this creature is usually described as a serpent or a dragon, which could easily fit in as the endgame boss. So in relation to the Yggdrasil tree, there could have been a dragon based off the Nidhogg. But that's just a theory. An obvious joke here. Now you could be asking, why am I talking about this game in time for Echoes? Out of all the games in the series, this game would resemble Gaiden more than any other game in the series. Gaiden was a game that took a similar approach to the main gameplay of the Fire Emblem series, but presented it in a different way by adding a world map, dungeons, and other things of the sort. Fire Emblem Wii has some of those things that were exclusive to Gaiden, but it mixes it up with different gameplay. With Echoes being a remake of Gaiden, I thought it'd be interesting to note, especially with the newer information surfaced about the game. During a Dengeki interview, it was revealed why the game got cancelled. It seemed that the director wasn't happy with how the game was turning out as it was getting close to a finished product. Yamagami, the producer of the game, also explained that Fire Emblem was about minimizing casualties as much as possible, and thinking about things carefully by the next turn. To put together a real-time experience in a short amount of time without these considerations, and make a judgment based off that was a little premature in my opinion. So in the end, development froze. Saying that development just froze for the product leads me to think that the idea is not completely scrapped just yet. Now the final question remains, do I think this game will ever see the light of day? I don't think it's too likely, but I feel that if it were to ever come out, now would be a really good time to try something like this. Think about it. It's a game similar to Gaiden, with a Gaiden remake coming out soon, along with intelligent systems being a lot more experimental to the Fire Emblem series, going off of Fire Emblem Warriors, Fire Emblem Heroes, and even TMS. Not to mention we don't know anything about the new Fire Emblem game being made for the Switch. So who's to say that it won't be Fire Emblem Wii? Granted, I highly doubt it will be Fire Emblem Wii, but it is a possibility that could happen. What are your thoughts on the cancelled Fire Emblem game? Does it sound like something you would want to play? Feel free to give your thoughts in the comment section. And in Fire Emblem Echoes near release, I hope that you all enjoy the game.